Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific. That's Robert Hilliard. I'm Whitney Wiley, and this is the State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond. And we want to welcome you for joining us today. We are going to be talking about bad leadership. At least, like, oh, surprise, surprise. That what we do here is talk about leadership, but we want to point out some signs of bad leadership so that you can reverse them, flip the script, and do it the right way. So we're going to pick on 6 signs that we picked up from an article out of Entrepreneur Magazine. The link is in the post for this episode. So you can actually click on it, read the article, read along with this, or read it later, either one. So, Robert.
Okay.
I know you don't know anything about bad leadership personally because you're an awesome leader.
Thank you.
But, looking at reading the article, the very first one is having a selfish leadership style, right? And so, obviously, the simple flip for that, if it's selfish is not a good way to go, then being selfless would be the better way to go. And it says bad leadership. I'm not a real believer in good or bad, having that judgment on it. More, are you getting the results that you want? Right? If you are getting the results that you want, and I'm not talking about just getting the work done, but assuming that as a leader, what you want are your people to be productive and engaged, happy, right? To show up to work, coming to work energetic, bringing their best selves to the workplace every day, or the workplace if they're at home. If that's what you want, then is being selfish going to help you get there, right? So those are the questions at least I believe you should be asking. Is what I'm doing getting me the results that I want beyond just getting the work done? Because you could get the work done by ordering people around, using your what is draw the blank.
Right.
Say the word.
Position power.
Position power. Thank you. So you could get the work done that way, but does that really get you what you want? So anyway, what are your thoughts here? And then let's jump into this first style.
Keeping what you said, I heard years ago, a really great definition of leadership. Not so much a definition, but a description. And the person said, would people follow you if you didn't have a title?
Exactly.
Right. So I think that's, right up front, just to put that out there. But I think what makes this so interesting is that, and we talked about this before, good leaders are hard to come by. It's very easy to see a bad leader because there's more of them, right? So being selfish is really taking the credit for other people's work. Some people will shamelessly do that. I worked with someone for someone who asked me to map out something for them right before we were going into a meeting. And I didn't know why they were asking me to do it. Obviously, they knew I could do it. So they asked me. And so I said, well, do you have a piece of paper? And we're on the elevator. So I said, you have a piece of paper. So they give you a piece of paper and they give you
a whole other bad thing.
Because this is
all on its own. Right?
All on its own. And so I sketched this thing out and I give it to them. And then we're sitting in the meeting with the COO. And the COO is talking about some of the things that they want to do. And right in the middle of this meeting, this person that I gave this thing to slid it across the table and said, well, here's a couple of solutions that I've come up with. And I can remember I was mortified because my idea. Second, it was a sketch on loose leaf paper, not professionally done. Because it's like, sure, I have some ideas in this, thinking that we were going to come back from the meeting and talk about my ideas. I didn't know that this person was going to present this. So, presenting someone else's ideas as your own, taking credit for someone else's work, that's being selfish. Of course, flipping it, being selfless, is giving the credit, to the team, where credit is giving credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
And I'll talk a little bit more about ego later on and how this buys into it, but really all of it has to do with ego. And people that a lot of times when people present with a really big ego, it's really the opposite, right? So it just, that experience came to my mind when you started talking about that way. And I was very young in my career, and it taught me a very important lesson. It's like, don't give away your stuff.
So here's the thing. And you know me, we've been connected since 2013. So, and God, it's almost 9 years.
Wow.
Time sure flies. Time flies.
Wow.
But this concept of selfless leadership, right? It starts here. That leadership, there's this conundrum in leadership where there is an aspect of leadership that is about you, and it's what you mentioned about taking, about learning lessons, about growing, about developing as a leader, right? You being able to bring your best self. But the majority of leadership is not about you. It's about your people. It's about lifting them up, empowering them, developing them, preparing them, and adding to the concept that you shared about leadership. Another one that I think about is that good leadership is about you preparing yourself to be out of a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you should be developing people so that they can replace you. They replace you and you move on to something else where you're leading something else bigger or better, or retiring, or whatever it is that you do next, right? Taking on different challenges, that your goal isn't to stay in this position the rest of your life. Therefore, you should be preparing your people to basically replace you. And so that's the mark of a good leader, that you have developed, whether it actually works out that way or not, that you've actually developed your people so that they are at least considered, or could possibly be considered, to replace you. So inspiring them, and then creating these environments, creating the culture where that happens. And to your point, it does not involve taking credit for other people's successes. It doesn't involve blaming them when something goes wrong, which is the other side of that. So I'm going to take credit for the things that you do, and then I'm going to throw you under the bus, right, when things go poorly, because I'm looking out for myself. I'm not looking out for my team, and I'm not looking out for the organization as a whole. So selfish leadership is not your friend. And if you will trust that, if you take care of other people and develop them, set examples, that all the things that you want to get out of leadership, that you'll get, right? You'll get the recognition and the kudos, maybe not for a particular product or project, but for having a team that is consistently delivering what it's supposed to deliver, right? So you do get yours, but you don't do it at the expense of your people.
Well, your job is to get your team to be effective and efficient to a certain degree. I always want to be careful about using efficient on the heels of effective, because efficient is about time. Effective is about success, right? It's doing things in a successful way. And I think that people sometimes will shortcut the effectiveness to get efficiency. So I want to just put that out there.
So they need to go hand in hand, right?
Correct.
What I hear you saying is you're not going to shortchange effective at the am I saying that the right way? You're not going to go for efficiency at the expense of effectiveness.
Correct.
Yeah.
And something you said, the best leader I ever had brought me into her office and sat me down and said, I'm going to create a clone of myself in you. I'm going to teach you everything I know. And I'm going to send you to the meetings that will help you get a better understanding of what I do and the organization. I'm going to help you grow your skills. And then she said, and then I'm going to help you get a job outside of here where you could become a leader. And I worked so hard for this person because they said that. I would, stay late. I would do more. I would work because I knew that they had my best interest.
Yeah.
At heart. And where other leaders, I had never experienced that before, and I will say this, did not experience it. After that, it was just that was the aberration.
Yeah.
This person, said, I'm going to help you be the best, OD person that you can be. And then I'm going to send you on your way so you can do the same for others. And because they didn't want me to be stagnant and didn't want people in the department that were going to be stagnant.
Yeah.
Wanted them to grow. So I think that's really important. I just wanted to piggyback that off of what you said.
Absolutely. And I think that leads into the next one, which is a leader who's resistant to change. And so the flip side of that is someone who embraces change, who recognizes, first of all, change is inevitable. You can't stop it. Even if you tried, you cannot stop it. So every day is different. Every day something is changing, whether you're doing the same job or not. It's not exactly the same every day, particularly when you are interacting and working with people, right? So the fact that it is just a part of life, resisting it doesn't serve you. That's not an effective leadership style. So you want to be someone who embraces change, and I would dare say go a step further and create an environment that encourages change. Not change for change's sake, but change that helps to move you where you're going, right? That helps your team and your people get to the goals that you're trying to move towards. And so part of that change is being willing to see new opportunities, to look at things with fresh eyes. And so what say you here?
I think you said it great. And I think the other part of that is they need to look outside, and you and I talk about this a lot. Your organization, any organization, is a microcosm of what's going on outside. You can resist what's going on outside to a certain degree, but sooner or later, whatever is happening outside of your organization is going to penetrate and is going to create chaos if you're not prepared. So with that, I'm really talking about being a strategic thinker, really looking at what's going on in the environment and seeing how that may affect your organization and being prepared for it. One of the things that I tell people all the time is, if you find yourself saying, well, that's the way things have always been done around here, you're probably headed for trouble, because you're not, and I've had one of my favorite stories, and I've probably said it on our program before, is being asked to participate in a brainstorming session where I was not facilitating, and I usually facilitate those, but somebody else wanted to do it. And every time they asked us for a suggestion, they would say, that won't work here. So after the fourth time they did that, no one said anything. And so they were standing up in front of us trying to get us to say stuff, and no one would say anything because what's the purpose? Because it's not really a brainstorming session. You don't want anybody else's ideas.
Right.
So they only wanted the things that had gone on in the organization before, or the things that could fit. So they were asking for change, but resisting change at the same time. The two you can't do both. So you can't say, I want change, what's that? Honey, I love you, now change, right? that phrase.
I love you just the way you are, now change. Yeah.
Now just change these 5 things. Well, you can't have both, right?
Right.
So you have to embrace change if you are going to be an effective leader, because change is always happening. And if you don't believe me, turn on the news and see what's going on. Every day there's a new thing popping up.
Yeah.
We had, before, and we've been kind of lulled into this sense of, I guess, homeostasis, right? And then all of a sudden we had the pandemic. But guess what? People have been talking about that since 2015. Had been resisting it. And we talked about that in probably one of our very first, webinar that we did, how it's been out there. So you got to be looking for those changes and be prepared for them.
Exactly. Minimally recognizing that change is going to happen, and so you might as well embrace it, right? See what's happening as an opportunity. Always new opportunities to learn, to grow, to improve processes, what have you. But I would challenge you to step that up and actually create the environments where you are facilitating change, inviting change into the process, and see how that actually helps people to bring some new energy, new creativity, and opportunities for innovation and ingenuity. So, it involves your thinking, the things that you believe, how you're behaving, and how you are actually being and showing up. All of those things are impacted by change. And so you might as well get on board, get on the change train. The next one is that they're incapable of leading themselves, right? And so the flip side of that, obviously, is being able to lead yourself, being capable of leading yourself. Not only capable, but doing it. This is an important component of emotional intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence has the 4 components. There's self-awareness, self-leadership, team, people, social awareness, and then social, managing relationships, right? So you've got those 4 components. Leading yourself is hugely important in emotional intelligence and your ability just to be a good leader. And it encompasses lots of things like your ability to be disciplined and committed to what you're doing. I think it sets the stage for you being basically an example for your people, which is one of your roles as a leader, is to set an example of how you want your people to behave, to navigate, how you want them to lead themselves and interact with others, to be a part of the team. So self-leadership.
Yeah, knowing what you need to work on, knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, and making a plan to make your weaknesses less evident or turn them into strengths, right? And then also having the focus and discipline to do so. I know a lot of leaders that expect their team members to be better, to work on themselves, to learn more about their jobs, to go get degrees, to participate in, what do you call those tuition reimbursement and things like that, but the leader themselves will not take a class or read a book.
Because they think they know everything.
Well, they want to, at least they want to present like they do, right? And no one knows everything. So
Right.
it's really about knowing your path forward. And part of knowing your path forward is knowing what you need to be better at and making a plan to actually get better at those things.
You know, one of the things that the author, I mentioned where this article came from, didn't mention the author, John Kitchens. But one of the things he says is that there is they're not committed to their own goals. So why would they be committed to the team's goals?
Right.
And I was like, wow. Yeah, I guess if you are not aware of yourself, what you need, how you need to grow, how what you're bringing, managing yourself, leading yourself, it really does make it difficult for you to lead other people. And the problem is people will see that. And that goes to that piece about being an example. If you are just telling people what to do, but not doing it yourself, sending people to classes, but you're sending a message that you don't need any of that. All right, you don't make time for it, you don't do it. There's a disconnect, and so you need to make sure that you are actually walking your talk, and that you show how you're committed to your goals, to your growth, to bettering yourself, so that your people will want to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, and the flip side, not flip side, but I think part of that is don't ask people to do things you're not willing to do yourself. Simple.
Absolutely. I think I shared the story here a few weeks back about I was at a training. The CEO of the company that was putting on the training was in attendance there. He wasn't doing the training that day, but someone else was. We had lunch as part of the program, and after the lunch, people had left their garbage after lunch laying around, and he went around picking up after people. This is the CEO. It was a multi-million-dollar company, and he's picking up trash. And I asked him about it, and he says, I don't do anything. I don't ask my people to do anything I wouldn't do.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was one of the best examples. Here he was doing that, where other people, first of all, clean up after your own self.
Right. But you know what? But it sends a powerful message. The CEO sees you leaving your mess, and oh wow, I should follow the CEO's example and pick up and help out and lend a hand. And the next message, and I really want to weave this into our next part of this, is that they're human too. They have 2 hands and 2 legs and 2 feet, and they can they don't stop being a human just because they have the title of CEO, COO, whatever it is.
Exactly.
So
exactly, which leads us to the next one, number 4, which is that you are unable to take criticism. So obviously, the flip side of that is that you can not only hear it, but that you can accept criticism or constructive feedback or input, however you want to term that. But not wanting to hear what people have to say, especially if you invite people to tell you things, right? Help me improve, and then you don't. And how does that manifest itself? You're not listening, one, right? Or you're defensive. You're explaining why you do what you do or why you did it that way, instead of just hearing, saying thank you. If you really don't want to hear it, then do that quietly somewhere else.
Let's talk about the royal court. because I used to belong to an organization where the CEO would gather all senior leaders, and it was really just as a tribute to them. So they would come and be like, oh mighty CEO, how great and powerful you are. And what they were not allowed to give any contrary ideas. In fact, it was known that any contrary ideas would be attacked viciously. And if you didn't get the message, and because a lot of times people bring contrary ideas because they're logical, and if you fought for your idea, then you became a problem. So those meetings, those they had every Friday, they were just royal courts where the CEO wanted to hear how great they were, and how great their ideas were, and didn't want to hear anything contrary to that. Obviously, the organization got into a bit of trouble because there wasn't an abundance of ideas, and so when things would happen where the CEO actually wanted to hear the ideas of others, people were so conditioned that they would not give their idea because they're like, this is going to get me in trouble. I'm going to get fired, or get a warning. That was one of the tools that they would give this person a warning for something that was I don't want to say ridiculous, but it was something that probably they were doing for years, but all of a sudden now the CEO has a problem with it. So being able to handle criticism, because it's going to help you grow. It's going to help you see other ideas. It's going to enrich the pool of ideas. We always say this, the collective IQ is greater than the singular IQ. It's going to allow you to look at things from different angles and different ways, so you can come up with solutions that you probably have never thought of before.
Yeah. I think one of the ways to avoid going down that path and staying on the path of being able to take criticism is starting with your mindset and not taking everything personally, right? It's not a personal attack, but rather see it as an opportunity to step into a better you, right? I have this saying. It's not original to me. I believe I got it from Tony Robbins, and it is that nothing has any meaning other than that which you give it. So for me, what that means is that if you say something about me, Robert, something negative about me, if you were to say something negative about me, I get to choose how to take that, right? I get to choose what I hear. I get to choose, or you're just making a statement. It doesn't have to be negative. I can choose to take it negatively, or I can choose to take it positively, or give it no meaning whatsoever, right? I have that choice. That's on me. That's my self-efficacy to take what I hear and what people do. I can internalize it, or I can choose not to. And then I can, from an objective place, take some time to actually evaluate, is this true or not? Right? If it's true, do I want to do something with it? Do I want to make some changes? Or if it's true, evaluating like I'm cool with it, and whatever the consequences are that go along with that. But it's up to me, right? So you've got to start from a place where you are not taking whatever people are offering, whether it is actual criticism or if it is more constructive feedback. All right, you get to decide what that means and how to take it. And if you'll start from that place, then you can use it to grow, to learn, and to become a better you.
Well, I think that again, you're talking about emotional intelligence, because that can be really hard to do. I remember, my younger self, which I know it's hard to believe, which was much different than the self you see here, right?
Thank God.
Yeah, you're right. I'm still immensely immature, but I've learned some things. But one of the things that I remember getting very early in my career, getting a really bad performance appraisal. I mean, it was just awful. And I remember leaving that meeting, and this was probably the first time in my career where I actually sat down and said, I'm really upset and angry by what was told to me. But you know what? A lot of it was true. And that was the first time I was, I was, and I had to really, it was hard because I was angry. And, but working, alongside that anger was I needed that job.
Mm.
And so I was like, well, I can continue to be defiant and be like, I'm not going to change. Or I can sit down and say, what of those things that my manager told me were actually true? And most of them were. I'm going to be honest. They were mostly true. And on the other side of that, after the next year, I got a lot of praise and a significant increase. And my manager said, you were in a lot of trouble, and I'm glad you turned it around. And that, and we weren't, and this is what's really interesting. We weren't, didn't have a great relationship.
Mm.
But I will tell you that when they left the organization, they reached out to me and hired me to work in another organization. And so that put me on the path that I'm on now, which is interesting, because they were like, well, I need you to go do some OD work, with another organization. You've been doing some of that, but I want you to do a lot more, and I'm recommending you for this new job. So the benefit, if you look at that, there's benefit, to taking criticism and going, is it true?
Yeah.
And it helped me grow in a lot of ways. So
I absolutely agree. You've got to start from a place where you are not taking it personally, so that you can be objective about analyzing it, right? Getting curious about asking questions, asking if it's true, if it's not true, if it is true. Again, what do you want to do with it? You could have decided it was true and said, okay, yeah, that's me, but I am who I am, which is a lot of people's response. I am who I am now. I'm not changing. That's your choice. It's a choice.
Absolutely.
You get to decide whether or not to change. And if you look at your long-term vision for your life, for your leadership, your career, whatever, and you ask the questions, is this going to serve me in pursuit of whatever it is you're looking for? That'll tell you whether or not you need to make changes. Right. So whatever someone says, you don't take it personally. You take the time to analyze it, get curious about it, analyze it, and then see if it's serving you now and long term. And if it is, and you want to stay who you are, have at it. Probably, you'll look at it and go, there are some changes that I can make. Maybe they're not wholesale changes, but some changes that will serve me better in moving where it is I want to go. And I think I've had similar, experiences. The very first time I applied for, I worked for, I'll just say it, I worked for the Internal Revenue Service a long time ago, and they had a pre-management program. I applied to get in the program and didn't get in. Right. And so I was hurt. I was crushed. And my response was, well, I'm going to get out of here and go find some place that will appreciate what I have to offer. And it's not always that easy, right? Because what is it? Wherever you go, there you are. All right. So if you just respond in a way where you don't want to hear what people have to say, and you just take who you are and what you are to the next place, you'll find out if it's true or not, right? Because it will be something that keeps popping up over and over again. And then you'll be forced at some point to make a change, because it will be staring you straight in the face, what needs to be changed.
sometimes though it's hard to see that. I remember
No, I get it.
years ago, I was helping. I'm not going to say which family member it was, just in case they watched the program, and they were complaining about their math teacher and how they don't know how to teach. And this was an excuse that I heard from every grade level. And I said, let's talk about math. What's the common denominator here? The common denominator is you. It's not the teacher, it's you. So you need to either buckle down, study more, get a tutor, whatever. You can't keep blaming everyone else because, like you said, wherever you go, there you are. You're taking all of that with you.
Absolutely. So the next one is not acting in accordance or in alignment with core values of the company. So here's the thing. Every company, expressed or not, has some set of core values, right? And we have a choice at the beginning whether or not to take on roles and responsibilities within companies that have values that don't align with ours. But if you find yourself in a company, maybe at some point you were in alignment, or maybe you really are in alignment with those values, but for whatever reason, maybe something's going on in your life and you find yourself not being in accordance with that. This sort of goes back to the last one. You've got to get curious and introspective about what's going on, why you're behaving the way you're behaving, whether or not where you are is where you want to be and in alignment with those values. Because when there's a disconnect, you cannot bring your best self to work. You cannot be of real value in a different respect to your people or the company. And then you are setting examples of what not to do. And so you've got to get on the right page with your company, in alignment with your company's values, in order to, be the best leader that you can be.
I agree, and alignment with the company's values and leading with your own too. I think so many times some people don't know what their values are, right? They just, they have them, but they haven't really thought about them in a conscious way. But knowing what your values are, matching them to the organization that you want to be working with, that's going to make sure that you're aligned, like you're saying, in alignment. And when it comes to your own values, and we talk about this all the time, express those to the people that work with you on your team.
Absolutely.
Because that's going to hold you accountable. If you say, I value hard work in myself, and you say that to your team, they're going to let you know when, hey, I thought you valued hard work. You're sitting on your desk with your feet up. Because remember, you're setting the tone for everybody in your team. And, you want to be leading authentically. So expressing your values is, it's good for them to know, because to let them know what you're about, but also it's a way to hold yourself accountable.
Absolutely. And, and it's a trickle down, because, right, your company has values, you have values, your people have values, and there are more of them generally than there are of you. And so if everyone's operating on their own set of values, the end result is chaos.
Yeah.
It's chaos. Mm-hmm. So the last thing you need in a team is chaos. A little conflict, sure. Chaos, not so much. So, and then the last one is cannot inspire growth in others in particular, right? You can't inspire growth in others. That is really what you're there for, is to help them to be the best that they can be, so that they bring that collective bestness, all that goodness of your people, that they're bringing all of that to bear to help your help you reach your shared goals, right? To go where it is you guys have envisioned, and that you're going as a team, so that you can accomplish the work that you're doing effectively, and where it matters efficiently, not just money, but time, or not just time. I think you said time, not just time, but money, time, and other resources, right? Maximizing the various resources is the way I see efficiency. But to do that effectively, you need to inspire them to grow and to be the best that they can be.
Absolutely. I think I'm getting some messages on my computer. I think really encouraging others to grow, finding out what makes people tick, knowing their values, what's important to them, allowing them, where they want to be in their careers, really important. The boss that I mentioned earlier, they knew where I wanted to be in my career, and they knew that if I just stayed doing the same things that I was doing, I wasn't going to get there. And one of the ways to do that was to give me more visibility in the organization, was to stretch me beyond my comfort zone, because I was very comfortable in the position I had. It was challenging me to learn more, so I had more value for the organization and more value for myself, encouraging me to get more education. Really, really, hit me over the head with that one a couple of times, so that it was. And by the way, it didn't take until later. That's how I met you, right? So, but the message was received. It was always there in the back of my mind that I needed to get that extra more education, in order to grow my career and to know the things that I needed to know to become an expert at what I wanted to excel at. So
Absolutely. And if you want your company to grow, your people need to grow, right? That it's that your company is only as strong as its weakest link. And so if you have stagnant people, they're not bringing creativity, they're not bringing energy, they're not bringing any ingenuity, innovation, innovative thinking, any of that. They're, going back to earlier, you continue to do the things that you've done, you'll continue to get the things that you've gotten, and growth of your company and the bottom line will move along with the growth of your people. So when you keep that in mind, you can see how that's important. So this is not about you telling people to go off and get classes. This is about you inspiring them to want to be and to develop, to be the best, whether it's in this position or moving up to some other position. All right, inspiring them to do that. In order to do that, they need to see you doing that, as well as encouraging them. So, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
no, I think that my final thought is that this was a great topic to talk about, because it shows both sides. I love that. But as always, what I like to say is, if you find yourself in the category of bad leader, grab one thing to work on. And then when you feel comfortable with that one, grab another and start building, for lack of a better word, your portfolio of good, solid leadership. Just take a small step. And that's one way to begin your journey, I think.
So I will leave with this, which is where I started. Is for me, in my thinking, the way I work with my clients is it's not about them being good or bad leaders, right? It's not about being good or bad. It's about being effective. Are you getting the results that you want? Which requires that you know what you want. It requires you to have a leadership vision, right? It requires you to have some goals for your people, goals for yourself, a place that you're moving towards. And if you're moving towards that and the work is getting done and things are, people are happy and productive and engaged. If you're getting all of that, right, and all of that is part of your goals and your vision for your team and yourself. If you're getting that, then you're an effective leader. And if you want to put a value judgment on it, say you're good, great, exceptional, have at it, right? If you're not getting that, again, it's not about being bad. It's about what can you do? What shifts can you make in your mindset? What actions can you take that are different that will move you to where you want to go? And then, like Robert said, just pick one, right? You don't have to do everything all at one time. Pick one, take baby steps if you need to, giant leaps when you can. And then you'll find yourself eventually being the leader that you want to be. But you need to know what that is before you get started.
One more thing.
Yes.
And as you do that, if it's hard, you're probably doing it right.
And if you don't know how to do it or where to get started, that's where Robert and I come in. And we would love to help you to become the effective leader that you want to be, an exceptional leader, outstanding if that is your goal. So reach out to one or both of us. We would love to talk with you and see how we can help you. Both Robert and I offer exploratory sessions, so you can have a conversation and figure out whether, sort of identify what it is you want to do and whether Robert and or I are good fits for you. So we invite you to do that. We want to thank you for joining us. We are here every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific, talking all things leadership. And we look forward to seeing you next time. So take care.
See you soon.